Welcome back to Week in Horror. We'll be covering May 17th through May 23rd today. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm Alex, and with me as always is JL and Eugene.
What's up, everybody?
How's it going, everybody?
All right, we got a couple of things to cover before we jump into it today, huh?
We do. First, I want to give a huge shout out to the winner of our 1,000 follower epic giveaway, Robert Oliver. And you may have seen his shout outs to us on social media, but yes, he won our 1,000 follower epic giveaway. We gave away a Michael Myers mask from Trick or Treat Studios. We gave a Friday the 13th Part 4 Jason mask from Nika, and a customized Necronomicon stash box. So you may have seen those pictures that he posted up online, but he was our big winner. So congratulations, Robert.
Heck yeah, Robert, congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thanks for showing us the support.
And we also want to give a big shout out to our newest Patreon, Kyrie.
Hey.
We appreciate your support, big time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We highly appreciate. We appreciate all our Patreon subscribers. Thank you so much.
And we want to give a big announcement. Next episode, we will have for our After Dark, actor and stuntman Joshua Moreno will be joining us for the episode and on our After Dark. I'm really excited about this one. I've actually worked with Joshua in the past. We worked together on a Cthulhu-inspired film. I do hope to work with him again one day, but he's been regularly working in the industry. This dude is huge. I mean, he's big. He's a big guy.
That dude is huge.
Fuck. How tall is he? He's like 6'7"? Anyway.
That's a big guy.
He's a giant.
That's
intimidating. He's a huge motherfucker. And it was fun. I got to choreograph a fight between him and me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it looked fantastic.
Where he put his foot out and knocked you across the room?
Pretty much. I had a big-ass footprint on my chest and everything, like Bruce Lee.
That just sounds like a badass name, though. Joshua Moreno in killing him hard.
But yeah, Big Josh he's a badass. He's also a super talented actor. Can't wait to have him on here. And we want to give a big shout out to the crew, to the director and crew and the actors behind the Telltale Heart short film that will be coming out here pretty soon. They've just recently released a trailer on YouTube. You can check that out. Just search YouTube. Telltale Heart short film trailer. You can check that out and give them some love. Give them a like, give them a share. I think, have you guys had a chance to see it? I shared the link with you guguys.
Yeah, I saw the trailer. It was great. I'm looking forward to this.
It looks legit. I'm really excited about it. It looks good. It looks high quality. And we've talked about in the past how there's not a lot of Poe inspired stuff out there. So I'm really excited about it.
I know, we were just talking about that. You know, would it work in today? And I think it's going to.
I think it is.
I like this kind of hallmark we have going back to. I think it's the technology. It's the technology and a real understanding of the material. So now that we have a lot of individuals who are big fans of old shit, so we're going to see stuff. You know, we're seeing like the resurgence in Lovecraft that we are currently seeing. We're going to get these people who have been big fans of this, and now with new technology here, we can shoot movies on our fucking iPhones and shit. There's actually a Skillshare program that teaches you how to shoot movies with an iPhone, like exactly what you need to do. I've looked at it; it's brilliant. So,
hey JL, Eugene, you guys remember when the internet was invented?
Yes, I remember a time when there was no internet.
Dude, yeah. I think in all of our lifetimes, we were all born before the internet was publicly available.
I think so.
Yeah, it was like 93 or something like that. I could be wrong.
I remember legitimately the first time I actually went on the internet at a friend's house.
I remember
when we got
our first computer with internet, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we had the first computer we got was an Acer. We had a dial-up modem.
Yep.
And the reason my mom got it was because I was in junior high school, and I think she wanted to get it because it came with Encarta. And that's going to blow some people's minds.
That's some shit you haven't heard for 25 fucking years.
I know. It came with Encarta preloaded, and Encarta was a fantastic resource. Think of it like the Encyclopedia Britannica, just all on one CD. And they released an updated one every single year. But it came with Encarta on it, and I think it was like an Encarta 92 or 93. No, was it 93? I think it was 93. Or somewhere like the early 90s. And so we got it, and I think we had a 14.4 BPS modem.
You remember when 56K came out and that was like the shit?
I was like, oh my god. Well, my mind was blown when a 28.8 came out. And I was like, holy shit, I can actually see the images on the on the World Wide Web.
Yep. I mean, it still took you like 6 hours to download one picture of Jenna Jameson? No.
And then we found
Pam Anderson. That was the first naked picture I ever downloaded off the internet. Pamela Anderson on a 56K fucking modem.
You're like, wait. As a picture slowly loads, like going down, you're like, okay, almost to the good part. Good part.
You gotta wait when your parents leave for work. You gotta start the download and just hope that it downloads before they get home from work. And if it doesn't, then you gotta exit out and try again the next day.
and hope nobody like picks up the phone or like, disrupts the dial-up.
That was back when you could just click one button to get to the history and see everything you've done. You didn't actually have to look for it.
Oh god, my memory just went back to fucking AOL chat rooms.
AIM, bro. Hey, aim me. What's up, girl? What's your aim?
What's your ASL?
Hey, hit me up. All right, give me 1 second. Yeah, ASL. 27, female, Florida.
What's up, 27 Florida female?
God.
So I'm super with the advent of technology. We find more people being able to accomplish translating a lot of the older literary technology, or a lot of the older literary works to film. I mean, we can see it. We see it now, and like Color Out of Space, and then we're gonna get the Dunwich Horror here pretty soon. I'm loving this resurgence, and so seeing these guys take on Edgar Allan Poe, and just the professionalism of what they put out, their production values were so strong, and it looks like they not only paid homage to the original work, but because they didn't change it all up, but they added their own flair to it, their own modern, I would guess, contemporary flair to it, which made it just, the trailer was completely arresting. I cannot wait to see the finished product when it comes out.
I can't wait either. And with this technology, not only is it giving easier access to people, you're seeing people talent who normally wouldn't have the opportunity to. Because you have to go through work your way up Hollywood and trying to do all that process where, honestly, you need a team of, say, 3, 4, 5 people who are really talented and really driven, and you just put your resources together and you can make something.
Here's the thing, too. If you take those stories and like the ambiance that you feel when you read those stories, I don't think like mainstream actors should be a part of stuff like Poe's work and stuff like these dark where you need to feel everything. It's hard when I see like celebrities in types of movies where it's supposed to be psychological, or you're really supposed to feel the story. It's hard to watch celebrities in that. So now we've got like our generation that's getting, we're becoming later in our years, and we're now able to fit these roles. I think with the technology being able to set the ambiance and these people you don't know, and all these people that have tried acting, or they're not big names, they haven't done a whole bunch of stuff, you can take all these new faces, put them together, and come up with something that will match the feeling while also not taking away from the movie with like celebrity hype, because that kills it for me and all that stuff.
I see what you're saying there, because you don't want a face distracting.
Yeah, it always,
because you're always going to see, oh, that's that actor, and it's hard to separate the two, unless it's a particularly I would say a particularly talented.
I mean, if you're
actor.
talking like the Raven,
Gary Oldman.
Okay, Gary Oldman.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
can do stuff like this, because whenever I'm watching a Gary Oldman film, I will at some point forget that I'm seeing Gary Oldman. Because that's how fucking good Gary Oldman is. What's that meme that was running around online? It was like, imagine one day you wake up, you go to the store, you're doing some you're buying some groceries, You walk out to your car, and then you turn around, and you turn around, and then someone yells "cut," and then you realize you're Gary Oldman. That's how fucking good Gary Oldman is. That's how good Gary Oldman is.
And it's good that he could go through, you know, like his whole life and not like succumb to, because we've had greats. Pardon me if nobody agrees, but like Heath Ledger, and even I mean Heath Ledger alone, like he was that same kind of, he immersed himself in those roles so much that it actually ended up taking over him. But like Gary Oldman, he can switch it off and on, and he's totally like in with the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, like that's a lot for some people.
Absolute chameleon.
I mean, you get John Cusack. He's like one of my favorite examples of something like this, because you can watch him in like 1408 or The Raven, or you know, anything that he's in. He can separate those roles, and he always plays to. He plays very well to, I keep saying ambiance. He keeps playing really well, like ambiance of movies. He can make you feel what you're supposed to feel in those movies, and you don't find that.
Oh yeah.
You don't find that in a whole lot of actors that can do as many roles as like Gary Oldman, John Cusack. I mean, Heath Ledger was a fucking amazing actor, and it was too bad that he, you know, succumbed to mental illness. But you know, that's a lot to take on. Think about that, changing your life for every movie. You have to submerge yourself in the actuality of what you're trying to act out. So if it's like an abused victim, you have to be in the mind of an abused victim, and that can fuck with people.
Yeah, that's why like my go-to, like Daniel Day-Lewis, how he immerses himself so much. And this is why he only does a handful of movies. He's done 2 movies in the last 10 years. Because he puts so much work and so much mental and prep into it that he needs that time of that to decompress, to get that character out. It completely like encompasses his entire life. But when you watch the movie Lincoln, I saw Abraham Lincoln on screen.
Right.
I felt like I was looking straight into the past. Like, this is exactly how Abraham Lincoln looked, talked. This is how everybody saw him. I didn't see a single ounce of Daniel Day-Lewis at all.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought him up, because I actually have a different take on it. Yes, Daniel Day-Lewis, one of the premier actors of our time. There Will Be Blood is one of my favorite films, and of course you go back, you know, My Left Foot.
Oh yeah.
Stuff like that. He's phenomenal in the work that he does, and his approach is incredible. The problem is that his method is so hyped, I can't help but see the amazingness of Daniel Day-Lewis. Because I'm so aware of how much effort he puts into his roles, how much time he spends preparing for them, how deep he goes into his method. And I realize he's got to take time off. I know he took 2 years after There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
You know, to kind of decompress from the mind of Daniel Plainview. Mm-hmm. And I can understand that, because that dude was a fucking lunatic, was a fucking maniac. You know, not a crazy person, but you know, just going to those depths. And I say, wow, Daniel Day-Lewis is fucking amazing. And then you watch Lincoln, it's like, holy shit, Daniel Day-Lewis is fucking Lincoln. I can't separate. It's very difficult for me to separate all the hype around Daniel Day-Lewis going into that. It's kind of like, it's so built up by the media, and unfortunately, you know, we're affected by it every day, and it just kind of infects that. So unlike Gary Oldman, because everybody accepts Gary Oldman's way, but you don't hear the media just hyping up Gary Oldman's ability. We've all just pretty much accepted that he is the epitome of chameleon acting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think it's only been recent, or the last couple of years, that people have really began to see how good he is, because he was so different in so many of his roles. Most people didn't realize, like, going back, that was him. So it's not like when you have some of these bigger name actors, you start stringing movies together and start realizing who they are, you know, how celebrities become celebrities. Oh, I'm put all those together. It's like he's been in 50 movies, and it's like just now realizing, oh my god, he has been in those movies. What? He's been acting since the 80s? What?
I'll always remember him. You must have thought it was White Boy Day. Is it White Boy Day? No, man, it ain't White Boy Day. From True Romance. I don't know if everybody remembers that. He played the one-eyed drug dealing Jamaican white guy.
See, that's exactly what I mean. Like True Romance. Yes. And I'm like, that is him, isn't it?
You must have thought it was White Boy Day. Hey, man, is it White Boy Day? No, man, it ain't White Boy Day. Oh, such a brilliant. But, yeah, and Alex, you mentioned Cusack. And I loved him in The Raven. There were moments there I was kind of like, I got the feel for it. He has that ability to draw you in with his ability to emote. Just like I loved him in Grosse Pointe Blank.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
1408 just chilled me.
That was probably one of the most influential movies of my life. Just the way that movie like made you feel and think, and like just watching somebody break down and question every ounce of sanity, like it's just the whole psychological. Because like honestly, that movie when you see like the ghosts and stuff, it's like obviously fake. It's not like it's supposed to be super realistic. It's like the psychological imprint that it leaves on your mind. It makes you question. I've questioned things in my life because of that movie. Like, okay, am I maybe going insane?
The thing that got me, and I was totally, when I first saw, because I saw, I got the chance to see it in theaters,
me too.
Was when his daughter comes back, and
he just breaks,
and she dies in his arms again.
At that point, he holds together so strong.
And then when the fucking alarm clock blares, and she just turns to ash in his hands, and you could just see it on his face. It was like I felt like I was about to snap right along.
Exactly,
with it.
And like, okay, so what got me about that movie? Sorry, since we're on it, the fact that like he kept that cigarette on him. Like I smoked for 14 years, and I quit smoking cigarettes, I guess about a year ago. And like the fact that he holds that cigarette and he's like, it's a habit. The fact that he can show that kind of control and then break down like that, like it just shows a full, total, strong person to complete broken person and everything in between. And I think that's just like the way that he fucking hits every single point and then like coming back from it. It's just fantastic all around. Just the way it's a roller coaster, and it really, you can, like you said, JL, you can connect with pretty much every point where he's at. He doesn't. He's a non-believer. Doesn't give a shit. I quit smoking, but I still can keep myself from not lighting this one up. I'm a strong dude. To slowly going insane, and then just completely breaking to a point where he would just die in that moment because he doesn't care anymore. It's just all out there. It was just insane.
Such good stuff. I'm glad to see this resurgence, and. Well, I do agree that the new upcoming actors who have not been established are getting the opportunity to jump into these and dive into these projects. I just can't wait for I love it. I'm feeling, especially with the quarantine going on and the movie theater industry taking the hit. If any of our listeners have not looked at it, should look at the effect that, and this is so weird, but the effect that Trolls World Tour, that children's film. And I know it's weird for me to bring up, but that movie has had a profound impact on the way studios are looking at their relationships with theaters.
Yeah.
Because when that movie was slated to come out, and then all of a sudden the quarantine hit, and the lockdowns began, the studio shifted gears and sent that thing direct. I think it was the day of the lockdowns were announced. The day that Trolls World Tour was supposed to premiere in theaters. And that film, the studio immediately shifted gears and released it to VOD. Just like they did with The Invisible Man, just like they did with The Hunt. It went immediately to video on demand. And then from video on demand only, no theaters, it grossed $100 million.
Holy fuck, really?
Yep. Damn.
So that movie right there showed that the theater space...
Oh my god!
That may have been the death knell of movie theaters,
dude. Yeah,
because now studios realize They do not have to go to theaters to make them for a film to be successful.
Well, and
this is the movie theater industry's worst nightmare, where direct to video on demand. Literally, I can go to my Xbox and boom, I've got the movie day of release. I don't have to go to the theater. I don't have to deal with traffic. I don't have to sit in a theater full of assholes. I don't have to buy concessions for concessions for $50.
Look at the monetary point though. That movie, okay, cool. It came out. It was $20 to rent that movie. But like, if you've got a house of 5 people, 3 kids or 4 kids or something in the house. Shit, yeah, I'm gonna pay $20 to have them sit in front of that instead of $20 a piece when you go to the movie theater now, just for tickets. And then that's almost $100.
Dealing with driving him there, dealing with him getting situated in the theater, dealing people talking in the theater, trying to enjoy the experience.
What's the movie maker's cut though? Like, what is the movie theater's cut on that? I guarantee they made more in their pockets because of this. Even if they're just doing, so the movie theater sells 5 tickets to my family, or the company sells 1 movie to me, they're probably making more off of that than they would be off the movie theater.
And see, that's why, we've seen during the quarantine, and I don't want to talk too much about the quarantine itself, but we've seen the ripple effects of this. People have turned to artists.
Mm-hmm.
They have turned to artists during this quarantine to help get them through that, which is what people do in dark times. They turn to creative types to help pass the time.
Because that's what life is about, bro.
And things being shut down, we see new avenues of opportunity. Our podcast is seeing a big surge simply because of this quarantine. And and to all of our listeners, we thank you for that. Your support is unbelievable. But we see that with the movie theater industry, just like the workforce itself. Businesses like my friend Cody, he works. He's a coder, and his company is now reevaluating because all of their entire workforce is at home currently, working, just doing all the jobs, and they have seen an increase in productivity.
Yeah, why rent out an office if you can do it all from home?
Exactly. Save the money on the office space. Pay everybody to work from home. If they don't turn their shit in on time, you can still fire them. But if everybody's showing up on time and everybody's working their ass off and your productivity actually increases because of this, why waste the money?
Twitter already take some of that money to add to their wages, and a higher wage, an increase in wage is going to make productivity shoot through the roof. Exactly. More productivity, more money for the employees.
What were you saying, Eugene?
And Twitter actually announced a statement a day or 2 ago saying that they're going to allow people to continue working from home indefinitely.
Yeah, why not?
See? There you go.
Why spend all that money?
And then we have the film industry. We have the studios themselves. Everything is being shot digital. So it's already there on the computer. And all you have to do is just upload that to their servers. And automatically, boom, it's broadcast to everybody. It's as simple as putting up a video on YouTube. Obviously, the files are large and everything like that, but it literally is as simple as putting a pre-recorded video up on YouTube. Yeah. Now they're just doing it to all the streaming services, and boom, you have it there already. Vin Diesel's new one, Bloodshot, that just recently came out. It was within a week. It was on VOD. Now imagine. If you cut out the middleman, cut out the theater, then you don't have to prep anything to go to theaters. You don't have to spend on the shipping to go to theaters. You don't have to deal with theater management. And AMC, I think it was AMC, has responded to the Trolls World Tour debacle by saying that they're going to ban all Universal Studios films.
Oh, God.
That theater will not show any Universal Studios films because, and it wasn't like they had a contract. AMC can't sue them. But they feel like Universal kind of baited and switched them. But no, AMC was responding to the times.
Exactly.
So we're seeing this change. Yeah, we're seeing this change. And we're seeing brand new filmmakers. People like Matthew Mark Hunter, who has used this opportunity to put out like 15 more short films.
I saw that.
We're seeing other directors finally getting the opportunity, the freedom. They can work from home, and they're not exhausted. They're there at their house. They can take their time to go and shoot something, and we're seeing more independent and small and unknown creative types bringing out new stuff, and some of it is really fucking good.
And see, what I'm actually curious about is with some of the more VOD stuff, a lot of directors intend for that theatrical experience, and I'm kind of curious to see how that's going to affect certain genres, because you will have certain films that are fantastic in theater, and the one that comes to mind right off the bat is like Lost in Translation, which is a phenomenal movie. Everybody I know who saw it in theaters loved it. Everybody I knew who saw it at home didn't, because once you start watching a movie at home, you're competing with the computer, the cell phone. It's too many distractions. And I wonder if you'll see some genres, because Marvel films, that'll be easy. You can go and you can pause and just hop right back in. It's no big deal. But maybe some of these other films, some of these horror films, some of these maybe slower dramas, that now they got more things to compete with than just when you have your undivided attention in a theater. So I wonder if there will be a genre shift, that maybe slower dramatic films end up dropping off because they can't hold people's attention at home.
Okay, so like kids movies would be great at home, so you don't have to drag all the kids to the theater, or like action movies would be great in the theater because, you know, you got the big screen and the big surround sound. So yeah.
I think horror movies as well.
Yeah, horror for sure, dude.
You have the unique experience of being able to internalize and enjoy the horror movie experience without people around you.
Nobody's talking, nobody's asking questions.
Exactly. I can tell you, Invisible Man was fucking amazing, and I watched it all. I rented it, the day it came out, and I watched it on my big screen, and I watched it with my wife here in the house. It was quiet, and we just turned off the lights and we watched this horror, and that movie was fucking brilliant. I love that. I enjoyed that experience more than I ever would have going to the theaters.
Fucking first world quarantine problems.
Exactly. So
I just watched it on my big screen with my wife in my house that's comfortably temperatured with my food.
And I'm liking it this way. I'm liking the direction that said that, the kind of, this is the change. And obviously, audiences, they reject change. They don't like change, especially, people who are entrenched in that. But all things are going to change. Here in Texas, we have seen the Lizard Lounge, one of my favorite nightclubs.
Gone.
Lizard Lounge.
Yeah,
after 30 years, the Lizard Lounge is gone. Highland Park Cafeteria, after over 90 years in business.
Almost 100 fucking years.
They've closed down. Yeah, they've closed down. Steak and Shake is shuttering all of its locations.
All of them. We just lost a couple more Hofbrau steaks.
Yeah,
there's only a few of those.
We are seeing a massive change. I know, what was it? Fucking Wolfgang Puck's at Reunion Tower, they've shut
gone.
So we are seeing a giant change. And things will return to a sort of normal.
We'll return to a normal.
We've gotten to, for the movie industry, we have seen an establishment. We're seeing a shakeup of the establishment, and I like it for one because it's giving more people more opportunities to be creative.
Oh,
this is why we get things like the people who gave us the Telltale Heart short film. When that comes out, that's going to be the absolute shit. Check them out on YouTube. Look at that trailer. It's going to be fantastic. I can't wait for one to see what else comes out. Inspired by the opportunity that people get to be at home, they get to work from home, they're in their space, and the minute they clock out, they're not exhausted. They are not worn out from traffic. They can literally punch out and go shoot a fucking movie.
That's true. I'm just curious to see, in terms of content, how does that affect upcoming content? With movies that are already in post-production, and they're obviously going to be coming out, I'm just kind of curious to see what genres will thrive, because genres go in and out, what genres are going to thrive, what movie types are going to thrive, and what may fall by the wayside due to more and more people watching them at home. Yeah. I'm just curious to see.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good.
It is. But, this is, and I said it, I know it, I said it. But anyways.
Drink.
This is a horror podcast, and we can talk about all other kinds of stuff, but you are here for the horror movies. So let's go ahead and kick this off. JL, what do we got?
All right, first up on the docket, released May 18th, 2006. We're looking at The Breed. So, killer dog film. Actually, I should say killer dogs, many killer dogs. Directed by Nicholas Mastandrea. and written by Robert Conte and Peter Martin Wortman, starring Michelle Rodriguez, Fast and Furious and Resident Evil fame, Oliver Hudson, Taryn Manning, Eric Lively, and Hill Harper. And The Breed, killer dog horror film, follows a group of teens, obviously a group of teens who always do dumb things, who travel to what they think is a deserted island so that they can party, and discover that the island was the site of a military testing facility that was genetically engineering attack dogs for use in warfare. And when shit went haywire, they abandoned the whole thing. So the island is overrun with crazy mutant dogs, and they have to fight their way to survival. So, a lot of weird stuff, a lot of interesting stuff, a very interesting premise. But for some reason, the film just fell short.
A little bit. A little bit. I mean, it wasn't a terrible movie. And he had some big names in there, like Michelle Rodriguez was in this, which I fucking love her. But this only grossed $14,500 in the United States and $1.6 million worldwide. And so it kind of flopped like real hard. But it was definitely, I did the research, I watched the movie, and I don't know why. I guess I could speculate.
It was very by the numbers.
It very
really was.
Just, I guess it was not appealing to the masses. It was I guess by the numbers would be the way to put that. And in 2006, we'd already seen, I guess, our animal horror films dying. I guess we've all seen it before. It's like you got
I don't
these
think they're dying, but yeah, it's nothing new. You've got Cujo, you've got Man's Best Friend, you've got Rottweiler, you've got The Pack, but all films that I think took greater risks, both in storytelling and in actor choices, and of course the director himself. I think it's just about taking risks.
It really is, because you have to make your movie stand out in some way. There's something like, the last time I checked, it's like 700 or 800 movies come out every single year on theaters and VOD and all sorts of kind of stuff. 800 movies a year. So
you have to stand out.
Yeah. So you have to do something that kind of sets yourself apart. This movie was hard to find stuff on. I would type The Breed, and it was like 7 other choices of films named The Breed that came up before this one, because nothing stands out. There is nothing remarkable.
No,
it was
the
just,
trailer wasn't even that great.
It wasn't. It had a coloring book, and it's like, okay, I need young, attractive people in the woods. Let's get a villain.
Bunch of chicks in bikinis.
And we'll have, the first attack that happens, and the plane disappears, and okay, check, cool. All right, well, we just edit together. We should have a movie.
And then we zipline over a couple of fucking German shepherds and call it a day.
And that's it.
That got me, because Mastrandeus, who directed this, had the perfect opportunity, because he was the first AD for Wes Craven on Wes Craven's A New Nightmare. And the reason he got this director's position and because this movie was produced by Wes Craven, the reason he got the film was because of the job that he did on New Nightmare. So this is literally your first time shot. This is your first film, and I think he just fell prey, I would say he stumbled in being, they have those first timer difficulties.
And there are a lot, and this is not only is this his first time, this is his only one. Yeah. He went straight back to second unit directing and assistant directing, which second unit, for those who aren't familiar with, second unit does like B-roll footage, stuff where main actors aren't involved. So he'll go and direct a scene. He would direct like close-ups of objects or B-roll footage, and then they just submit it to editing. So
he stuck his dick in and heard he ran away.
Exactly. He's like, nope, this was not for me. This isn't. And you have to have a certain personality and a certain mindset to direct a film, because you have to make so many little to moderate sized decisions every single day that affect the product, and a lot of people cannot take that. So he probably, as you're overwhelmed, do you want the dog to go from here? From here? Do you want the actor to run this way? Do you want to move this one? Okay, how do you feel about this? And you're answering all these questions every single day on set. And then you're answering more questions in your post-production. Do you like this song? Do you want the song more? Sometimes people need that person that's over them. They need that, okay, well, I can do some stuff, but then I can put the director and they can get the final decision. It's a lot of pressure, and it's not a job for everybody.
It is, and I remember when I was directing my web series, the first episode of my web series, it was my first time actually like legit directing, being on the ground floor, and of course I was involved I also wrote it. I adapted it from Dante's Inferno, and so I adapted it. I did the writing, I produced it, I was directing, and I didn't want to be in it. I wanted other people. I cast people that I knew. And my first taste of directing, nothing near as big as like a multi-million-dollar production, but there are pitfalls that you run into. You suddenly realize how much or how quick you got to think on the fly, making decisions on the fly, recognizing the line between the opportunities to be creative and the opportunities when you need to get the fucking shot done. Because a director can be on there and you can be working, everything can be going at a nice clip, and then all of a sudden you want to get creative with things. You want to say, oh, I want to do this, and then all of a sudden you kind of get lost in that miasma of trying to be creative on the fly, and then you've lost half a day. So time management, very, very important. Dealing with actors, very important, which is why there's always a big team behind you. You rely on your first AD, rely on your second AD, rely on the people that are underneath you, and it's a shit ton of responsibility. And I love directing, and I want to direct again someday. It was overwhelming, and I can understand why some directors take good long pauses between productions just to kind of like shake that shit off.
It is. It's hard, especially when you have your idea, and then your cinematographer's like, well, hey, I got an idea for this. And you're like, well, I don't know, is that idea better, or should I stick with my idea? And then your production designer's like, oh, well, what if we try this instead? And you have to be flexible as a director, but at the same time, you have to maintain that vision. And you have to be willing to tell a DP or a production designer or some of these higher up people, no, that's not going to work for the vision I want. Because if you say yes to every little thing all your department heads do, then it just becomes this hodgepodge of something that has no vision. It has no direction. And we've seen plenty of those films. It's like, this really doesn't have like any vision behind it. It's a safe paint by the numbers type of film that just takes no creative license. And it's almost like sometimes I would prefer a director to try something and fail and go, I tried something that failed, let's move on, than a paint by the numbers, because even if you fail, you might be the next Room or the next Sharknado.
Oh, yeah.
You might end up being one of those films that's so bad it's good, or a film like The Thing, which flopped in theaters, but then people started realizing it years later because it was ahead of its time, versus this paint by the numbers that no one's ever going to remember.
Yeah, it's definitely The Breed was definitely a textbook approach to horror. The film school style. If you were to go to film school and say, I'm going to make this movie, this is literally what a teacher or what your film professor would teach you to do. Hit these points, make sure you establish your acts, hit these major points, focus on these tropes, and find a way to weave them in, and then and just boom, it's just like from beginning to end. That was what, and then have the jumps, and even throwing the jump scare at the end, where they're on the boat, they're escaping, they think they're safe, then they open the door, and then boom, a dog jumps out. So
way to fucking ruin it.
Well, I mean, 2006. Come on, what was this,
$1.6 million. Come on, if you haven't seen it, you're not going to.
Yeah, 14 years ago. I think I can take the risk.
Damn, that was 14. Jesus.
But that's the difficulty of that, and it may have been overwhelming for him. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it's just he had his shot, and he kind of stumbled a bit, and he's just looking for another opportunity to try and, maybe just realize he needed more experience. Because sometimes you can hit that director's stride once you've got enough experience in your belt and you've worked with enough people. Maybe it may have been too early for him, but maybe we'll see something from him again in the future. But who knows? I know there's a lot of pitfalls when directing, and if you fall into them, it can really ruin the experience.
It really can, and it sucks, and you feel really bad when you direct something and it turns out bad. That can hit a lot of people mentally. It's hard for a lot of people to recover because you put so much time and effort. Because a big budget movie, even a medium budget movie, takes an average of 1.5 to 2 years to make. And you have millions of dollars that are put into it, and then you watch that cut, and you're just like, this isn't good at all. And you feel bad. You really do. You feel bad. I know as a director of short films, I have some great products that I'm really proud of, and I've directed some films that it's like, okay, this is trash. And you feel bad. You feel really bad because the buck stops at you.
Yeah.
And so some people are able to push through and go, okay, you know what, I messed up. Let's go back, hop back on the horse, try again. And other people are just like, you know what, I'm done. This isn't for me. I'm just going to go back to other things.
Yeah. So that reminds me, that brings us up to what I want to ask the audience. So no matter what, we sometimes, even in the best horror film, you can see where a mistake has been made. And sometimes they're glaringly obvious, sometimes they're not, where you realize, whoa, why would the director make that choice? Or why would the cinematographer make that choice? Or why did the director allow the actor to take that in that direction? That makes no sense. It breaks the fourth wall, it breaks the suspension of disbelief, or something of that nature, and it just takes you completely out of the film. We've all seen them as horror fans. We've seen them in even some of the good ones, some of the good horror films. What is the worst one the audience has seen? What's the worst one you've come across that it stood out and it was just like, oh, in your face glaringly? One of the ones that I can come up with was fucking an Amber Heard film. And I know that woman's name is like fucking kryptonite right now. But I think she did some movie where she was in a mental asylum. Fuck, I can't even remember the goddamn name. It was so terrible. But the worst mistake I saw was in the very end. It was a mediocre film. The acting around Amber was okay, but there was a jump. They did the typical jump scare at the end of the film, right before they cut to credits. And it was someone was opening up a cabinet door and Amber Heard was in there. And she jumped out. It was like, okay, what the fuck? Right before they open the door and she jumps out, she looks at the camera. Like her eyes went to the camera for the briefest moment, and I'm like, oh, what the fuck, girl?
Well, I mean, fucking cut it out in post, dude.
or find it, or do a different take.
Yeah.
Say, hey, Amber, don't look at the camera when you come out, and
you're a professional
they missed it or whatever. But that's that kind of shit that I'm talking about. So I want to know from the audience, what is the worst film mistake you have seen in any horror film? We'd love to know.
Casting Paris Hilton in House of Wax.
We would get to see her die, though.
I mean, that's fair.
It's true. They made up for it with the head impalement.
Yeah. I think the reason that I watched that movie was because I knew she got impaled.
Oh, it was worth it. Yes, it was worth it. All right. Let's see. Alex, you got our next one, right?
I sure do. We're going to take you to May 21st, 1986 with a film called Crawlspace. And if you live in the north, you know what a crawlspace is. For those southern listeners, it's this place that they have in the basement underneath the stairs normally in a house. But that has nothing to do with this movie at all. I just wanted to point out the fact that there's no fucking basements in Texas.
There's not.
I'll mention the word and people are like, what? You grew up in a basement. Anyways, I love you, Texas. This movie, see, got me all fucked up now. Texas and this movie. directed by David Schmoller, also written by David Schmoller, featuring Klaus Kinski, Talia Balsam? Nobody's correcting me. This is awkward now.
I only do Korean names, so I'm just waiting that for you.
Barbara Winnery, a couple of people that I've never heard of before. Carol Francis, Tane McClure, Sally Brown. This movie follows a son of a Nazi surgeon. Sorry, I had to think about that because it was a tongue twister earlier when I was trying to say it out loud. The son of a Nazi surgeon has a house or an apartment that is filled with women, and it's kind of like, what the fuck is a death maze type thing. So there's this guy that has this apartment for women, and he kidnaps them and tortures them and kills them in ways with traps and stuff. I'm trying to make it not sound like Saw. That's why I keep fumbling. That's why I'm stumbling here. I'm trying to make it not sound like Saw, but like essentially,
I can hear the listeners now. Wait a second. So.
I'm like trying to come up with like a different way to say it. It sounded better on paper, but yeah, guy's got an apartment and creeps around and kidnaps and kills people essentially, and like I had never seen this movie, and JL was like, "Hey, sorry about this one." And I saw the opening scene where she like goes into the room and there's the woman in the cage and the rats, and the woman fucking gets killed, and then he puts the blood on the bullet, and then he does the Russian roulette thing, and he's like, "So be it." And I was like, cool. And then it kind of went downhill from there. But yeah, definitely an interesting piece of 80s literature.
Weirdness.
It's so weird. It's so weird, and fucking
a lot of weirdness.
Kinski in this movie, dude, Gunther was just absolutely fucking insane. Dr. Carl Gunther. But yeah, that whole "so be it" thing was probably my favorite part of the whole movie. Click, so be it. Oh, we got a badass over here.
Well, you have starting off with the main actor Klaus Kinski, who basically was insane.
He was just fucking nuts.
You're not talking just in the movie, just like in person. So he starting off early on. He was born in 1926, 1929, around that time frame, and he was actually conscripted into the Hitler's army in World War II. And was actually stationed over the Netherlands, saw a little bit of combat before he was captured by British soldiers and returned back. And I don't know, maybe if it was something with that experience as a whole, because while he was on the British island, they started hearing that when the war was over and they started shipping German POWs back, he had heard a rumor that sick Germans would go first. So he decided to strip down naked, stand outside to try to get sick while drinking his own urine.
I mean, technically that's not how you get sick, but I give him an A for effort.
Oh no, he failed because he didn't get sick.
Yeah, that's not how you get sick.
That's just not. So that gives you like a starting point of where he was. Now, flash forwarding to when they were making this film, he was a nightmare to work with. And one day, he started 6 fistfights with various cast and crew members. He refused to say any line he didn't like. So the story stopped making sense because he wouldn't say key parts of dialogue. And
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because he's just like, I'm just not going to say that. And he wanted to decide when scenes would begin and end. So when he was done with the scene, he would just stand there quietly. While everybody else was like, the cameras are rolling and all the other kind of stuff, and he just stand there. And so the crew members went up to the director and they're like, we want to fire, please fire him, get rid of him. So the director goes up to Empire Pictures, the studio that was producing the film, and the studio said, no, you're stuck with them. You have to deal with them. So then that's when crew members were
contract.
Yeah, you're stuck. That's it. And so crew members started putting together like a fund to have him killed. That's how bad
What the fuck?
he was on set. That they're just like, they would come to, please kill Mr. Krinsky.
Reading about it, he wouldn't respond to like the director's cues, like action or cut. He wouldn't respond to them. So like you got to imagine how difficult that makes it on a fucking set when there's one person when you're like cut and they keep fucking talking and everybody's like shut the fuck up and they just won't. And then it's like, dude, we got to get rid of this guy. And they're like, we can't. And they're like, well, fuck, now we got to kill him.
Yeah, that's the only solution.
Somebody
we can't just power through production. We need to kill him.
Somebody load that Russian roulette gun with
the tale of this guy's life is absolute fucking madness. His relationship with his family, his relationship with his kids, pretty virtually every director that ever worked with him, especially other co-stars as well. It was you hear tales of certain actors like that. Like I think the most comparable would be Oliver Reed, who was a fantastic actor, absolutely phenomenal actor. What I think one of his first roles was The Curse of the Werewolf, where he was the werewolf on screen. A lot of people might remember him from Gladiator. He was Proximo in Gladiator. That was the movie he died before it was finished filming. But absolutely phenomenal actor. Worked with everybody. Christopher Lee was one of his best friends, and said that Oliver Reed, when he got to drinking, because Oliver Reed was a notorious drinker, then things would get downright nasty on set. But he was an alcoholic and he had his demons. But when he was dry, he was good. He was okay when he was dry. But Kinski, holy fucking shit. We can't blame drugs. We can't blame alcohol. We can't blame anything but just the madness of Kinski himself.
Seriously, go watch the 1999 short film called Please Kill Mr. Kinski.
The fact that the director went back and did that documentary is insane.
Seriously, go watch it. It'll explain. He was absolutely fucking mad. Like, he went out. I don't know if you covered this, but he went out and bought his own like wardrobe for the set because he didn't like what they had come up with for his character.
Oh, and then he charged it to the film's budget and then kept it.
Charged it to the fucking production.
That's just a dick move.
God. Yeah, what a fucking nut. I mean, it really shows in this movie, too. Which, I mean, you can't... I guess you couldn't... They casted too well. He was too good for the role. He was too in character.
They actually cast the character to play the character.
Exactly. They're like, we got to modify this script, bro. Like, we got to make this crazier. We thought we were going hard in the beginning, but look at this fucking psycho. God,
it's such a shame. It's such a shame because watching his other works, he did have talent. He did
absolutely,
but there's just
that's why he was cast.
There's just too many demons. Whatever he was dealing with, in both his personal and professional lives. I know that, Eugene, what was it? Only one of his kids showed up at his funeral?
Yeah, so he had... It was one of his sons that showed up to his funeral. His name was Nikolai. And, I mean, when you have family members that won't even show up, and there are a couple other family members have accused him of some bad stuff, which I'm not going to get into on the podcast. So, his overall relationship with his family's been bad. He actually spent several days in a psychiatric hospital. And he had a crush on a theatrical sponsor that was a very one-sided crush. And when she didn't return his affection, he tried to strangle her.
Holy fuck.
And he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And he had a lot of mental issues that just probably, especially at the time, because we're talking, this movie came out like 86, and this was even towards the later end of his life, that just wasn't solved. I mean, there wasn't really a mental illness research back then. There wasn't that effort into it. And he ended up, based on his life, he ended up in some fortuitous situations to get in the movies because he was like roommates with Werner Herzog, the famous director, when the director was like 13. So they lived together for a while, and families and stuff like that. And Warner went off to become a big famous director. But he's had a lot of opportunities, and at moments Klaus is a very gifted actor, but just mental illness, personal life, just couldn't keep things together. Very difficult to work with. And he burned bridges on a whim because he ended up working in 5 Werner Herzog films before that bridge was burned. And he had his demons.
It goes to show you, though, aspiring actors and actresses out there, go watch this short film, Please Kill Mr. Kinski, and just know that if you've got any doubt in your mind because you think you're not good enough, or this because I'm this way, or I can't, just go for it, because you don't know what they're looking for. Because this guy, I mean, went off, but they kept calling him for roles, and so just go out there and do your thing.
Sometimes you just need the crazy.
Dude, it doesn't matter. Maybe what you think is a flaw in your character will actually be what shapes you as an actor.
That's true. I think it's like a David Bowie quote that anybody who even wants to inspire to be an artist is like certifiable crazy. I know I butchered the quote, but he talks about how anybody who wants to be an artist wants that creativeness to come out.
It just means that you're so passionate about that creativity. You're so passionate about the art that you'd be willing to put any sort of normalcy behind to pursue it, which is kind of fucked up that the world is like, oh, art is abnormal and this day-to-day Wall Street grind is the normal thing, when life is art, and we should really start looking into that. And like you were talking about the quarantine, like we've really had a chance to take a step back and look at like what's really important in life, and pursuing artistic dreams is, in my mind, is so like honorable. I guess I see that as like you're doing so much more than the normal person. Everybody needs to be creative. If you're not being creative, you're just a drone. And being able to like see the creativeness in Kinski and what he did do with those good roles, he was a very good actor, but just like you gotta put the creativity into it. That's what it's about. Life is about art. Life is art. We need to really trim back to that.
Interesting that you bring that up, because one thing that always that absolutely intrigued me about this is that this film falls into the line of thematic films about spaces, turning living spaces into traps. And we've seen a long history of it going, obviously the parallels to Saw can be drawn, or the Hostel, anything of that, movies of that nature, for the torture porn of today. But you could trace this all the way back, and there are many films that come in between. But I found a remarkable inspiration that most likely the writers took, that Schmoller took from real life serial killer H.H. Holmes, who ran the murder hotel at the World's Fair in Chicago.
Yep.
Yeah, it was insane.
That bad motherfucker.
Yeah. And I'm not sure how many of our listeners are aware, are familiar with Herman Webster Mudgett, better known as Dr. Henry Howard Holmes, or H.H. Holmes.
H.H. Holmes.
Where he was a con man, he was a grifter, and he was a serial killer. And he wound up at the World's Fair in Chicago in, I think it was in the late 1800s, and he bought this hotel, and slowly but surely turned the entire hotel, into a murder maze.
Oh, and he would take these fucking drifters and these people that were just passing through town, nobody knew where they were, and give them rooms, and they would end up missing because he was fucking dumping them to the basement. Killing the shit out of them.
The legend of it is insane. He would have hallways that went to nowhere. He'd have doors that opened up to walls, or to just, you'd open a door and it would just be a drop to the basement, or he had chutes built into every single room that you could drop a body down and
made cleanup easy
into the basement area or into vats of acid. He had all the rooms were soundproofed, and he had it set up so he could pump gas into the rooms, to asphyxiate his victims. Absolutely insane shit. And we see, like you said, kind of art imitating life, that this event took place, and in the annals of serial killer history, but it kind of inspired that idea. And this is persisted because this is the late 1800s that this took place. And then we see movies like Crawlspace, we see movies like Saw, we see people putting people into traps for either the whatever sick justified reason they have, or just for the sadistic shits and giggles. And it caught me. It was just like, holy shit, I see the inspiration from this real life thing. And I see how it is kept up all the way to 2020. We're about to get another Saw film. Spiral is about to come out. And that's just this theme that just keeps coming up in film. And I found that to be totally intriguing.
It is intriguing.
The fascination with it, yeah.
And I think from a serial killer standpoint, it's one thing grabbing somebody, stabbing them, they're dead. But there has to be something, maybe the curiosity of what if they had some kind of a slight hope? What if they had, like taking from Saw, or even like the movie Seven, where he sets up messed up things, giving them that slim hope that, because if you somehow put a correct answer in your trap that somebody could break out and survive, even if it's like a 1%, somebody could find out about it. It's almost like a sporting event. It's like you're watching football, fourth down, 10 yards to go, down by 4, 2 minutes left to go. Odds are they're not going to get it, but what if they do? So it almost becomes like watching a sport of the person versus the trap, instead of just killing them.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it really goes into the God complex, because Gunther has that line when he declares himself his own God, his own jury, and his own executioner.
Yeah, because you still take responsibility for it because you built a trap and you put them into it, so you still get that powering sensation. But you want to see what are they going to do.
You get those narcissists, Gunther in this movie, or like H.H. Holmes. And you were talking about, I'm sorry, I wanted to touch back on the H.H. Holmes thing. But, he, like you said, he was a con man, and that's what it started out as, was cons, and then cons took off, and he made a bunch of money, and eventually he got bored with just conning people. And, that's not, now that we know with the medical advancements that we have today, we know that that's not it progresses that way, but it's like that mental illness was always there. He was always a sociopath. He was always a narcissist. It was going to lead to this because there's a pattern. And so you get these people that are we get these movies, where it skips all the backstory on it. But I find that to be the most interesting of these stories, is the backstory on how did you get to this point? And so I think a backstory on this movie would have definitely done it some good. But yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is the thought that the thought process of this person, you say God complex, it's it's a narcissistic view of the world, in a sociopathic view of the world, where nothing around you matters. You don't even matter, but nobody's gonna take that power away from you. And so it's cool to dive into the mental part of it now that we know more about it, and you're looking at it, and you have this actor that's actually ended up getting diagnosed with schizophrenia, and you can see the early stages of it in movies like this, which is super cool. I mean, not the schizophrenia part, because that sucks, but I mean, mental illness in general sucks, but it's interesting. I shouldn't say cool, I should say interesting. I find that very interesting. And especially seeing it on screen before they really knew, researched, cared to learn about these ailments that these people were having. And you see older movies where you can see this, and later in life these people end up having these mental illnesses, but then you see the early stages of it come out in their acting, and it's just, it's intense.
Yeah.
It really is.
Schizophrenia sucks.
Schizophrenia does suck.
I've seen it in real life. It's terrifying. But This movie started out with a Nazi, and I think we can probably ask the audience a question about some Nazis. It does come down to an evil Nazi, and I want to know from the audience, who are the best evil Nazis in film? I mean, we can go in real life too, I guess. All Nazis are evil. That's dumb. Well, who portrayed evil Nazis best on screen? That makes me sound less
like, what's the best way to phrase this?
I still gotta say, to put it in context, I still think Ian McKellen in Apt Pupil.
Okay.
Yeah, it was one of my absolutely. He was absolutely fucking amazing in that. He blurred the line between, absolute pure evil and a normal human being. Because he played a Nazi who had gone into hiding and escaped to America and was living under an assumed identity and gets discovered by this local boy who happens to be a genius. And he gets found out. And instead of turning him into the authorities, the kid wants him to tell him his stories that they refuse to tell in school. What really happened over there. During the Holocaust and everything. And so it's a fucked up psychological horror film, but Ian McKellen was off the fucking chain. Although I know Eugene has his own personal favorite.
So I was going to bring up two. I think the easy one to jump to would be Christoph Waltz from Inglourious Basterds, who does an amazing, amazing job, won an Oscar and everything, and easily the most famous one. Probably
oblige him.
Love the lies. But the one I actually wanted to bring up.
Ooh, that's a bingo. This is how you say it, yes? A bingo. You just say bingo.
But the one I actually wanted to bring up, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Downfall.
No.
It came out in 2004, and it's a German movie, and it talks about Hitler's last days in the bunker. And the actor Bruno Ganz that plays Hitler does an amazing job. Like, just amazing. If you go to YouTube, there used to be a bunch of videos because the film's in German, and so people would do overlays on it, stuff like waiting for the new Tool album, or waiting for this or waiting for that, and Hitler is standing there, he's sitting at his desk while he yells at everybody. Kind of thing. That's actually
99999.
That's actually where that scene is from. It's a movie Downfall, but Bruno Ganz is really good as Hitler. Probably the best Hitler representation I've seen on film.
Okay, so like when it comes down to like Nazi horror movies, I know I'm gonna get shit for this, but Dead Snow was one of my favorite Nazi movies ever.
Hey man, zombie Nazis.
Dude, Nazi zombies. It was the shit. That was that one and the second one. I can't remember what the second one was called.
But really, Dead Snow over Overlord.
Okay, but maybe not Overlord. I heard Overlord, and then I kind of felt bad. I mean, we could put like Dead Snow, Overlord. Inglourious Basterds, but that wasn't really a horror movie. I don't know. Yeah, okay, fine. Okay, Overlord over Dead Snow, but I liked Dead Snow because it was gimmicky, but also brutal as fuck. He started talking about fucking Hitler, and I just watched this movie. I don't know if you guys have seen it or heard of it, but it stars Sam Elliott, and it's called The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then Bigfoot.
Yes! And then killed the Bigfoot.
Dude, The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then Bigfoot. I was like, what the fuck? But then I saw...
Dude, it's fucking amazing.
I saw Sam Elliott and I was like, I gotta watch it. And I seriously was like, it was late, so I was gonna turn it on to like fall asleep to. I think I stayed up till like 2 a.m. because it was like, nope, I'm not gonna stop watching this. But
dude, it's a fucking amazing film.
Just, I can't stop thinking about like the whole sequence when he's like putting together his makeshift gun. And I won't go any farther than that, but yeah, it was great.
Dude, the whole scene that solidified that film and the greatness of that film, despite the title, The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot. But Sam Elliott has this that one scene where he's chatting with the Army intelligence guy, or I think he was CIA. But he's talking to this dude and he's recounting his time in the war.
Yes.
In World War II. and the shit that went down, and just the way Sam Elliott delivered that fucking scene.
Seriously.
It was only he could have done that.
I know. It was you could not have cast anybody else. The only reason that movie came out was because Sam Elliott starred in it. There was nobody else. I could not think of one other person that would be able to portray that role other than him.
So fucking.
And especially when like that one dude is like, when they're interviewing him in his house after, before he goes off into the woods, and the one French dude or whatever he is, he's like, wait, you killed him? He's like, yeah. It's like, damn.
All right.
Oh, good times. With Nazis, but let's move on to something a little scarier. Eugene, what do we got?
It's hard to beat Nazis, though, in terms of scariness. But we can try.
Those scary sons of bitches.
I think this one comes close.
This one definitely.
Yeah, this one is. This is one of the ones that does keep me up at night. And so released May 22nd, 2014. It's The Babadook. Yeah.
Duke.
He's so creepy. Just so creepy. As directed by Jennifer Kent, and it stars Essie Davis, Nora Wiseman, Haley McHenley, if I pronounced that correctly.
McElhenney.
Yeah, McElhenney, and Daniel Henshaw. And it's basically about a single mother plagued by the violent death of her husband and battles her son's fear of a monster lurking in the house, and kind of discovers that there is an actual monster in the house.
Plays it off for a minute and then was like, wait a second.
And she's like, no, they can't be again. Oh.
I don't know how deep we want to dive directly into this, but this is absolutely one of my favorite films ever, and it has a lot to do with the mother, and the way that like it plays. You see a lot of horror movies, and you get like a kid or somebody is like, hey, this bad thing's happening, and everybody brushes them off. But like in real life, if somebody came to me and was like, I'm seeing this thing in my room, I'd be like, well, then I'm going to sleep in your room. Like it's just like being more, I guess it comes down to empathy. I don't want to say sympathetic. I think it's empathetic, where like it wasn't like a parent brushing the child off. It was a parent that was like, I don't think so. And then like the very first sign of offness, she's like, well, maybe. And then it doesn't like skip into like ignoring it until it gets worse and worse. She like immediately is like, okay, something's fucked up. And then it just continues to get more messed up. And she's like, what? And then so then she's in it. So yeah, it would be like empathy. She becomes very empathetic very early. And that was more humanistic than a lot of horror movies that you watch. It's not fake. It's not like, I mean, if my kid came to me and was like, hey, this thing is happening, I'm going to be like, okay, my child, I don't know how old he's in the movie, maybe like 9 or 10. Like my child, this person who has not seen the things that I've seen in life is now saying, I'm seeing this thing. I would be so on top of that, like so fast. It's just, this movie is so real that it's scary.
But the thing that got me was, and I think a lot of critics and a lot of audience members, while it's difficult to articulate, but a lot of people think and feel it, is how the film, the Babadook is a real monster, and it's plaguing this woman who is this recently widowed woman dealing with her autistic child, but the way I saw it was the Babadook, the monster itself, was like the personification of grief.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And what grief can do to a person. And I connected with it in that way because something very, very similar is I could feel what she was going through, because I went through something similar when after my father passed away, because my father passed away very suddenly back in 2004, and without going into too much, there was a lot of things unsaid between my father and I, and so it was extremely jarring. Him suddenly, one day he was there, and then suddenly turned around and he's not. So, and I dealt with that for a year. turned my life upside down. Obviously, I'm not a parent. I didn't have a child, but I had a new girlfriend and my wife. We'd only been together, less than 6 months.
Wait, your girlfriend and your wife?
And Angela and I were, and we'd only been together like less than 6 months at the time. Then my father passed away. It was like, oh my God. And I've seen what it can do. I saw what it did to me. I know what it did to me, what it did to my life, and how when you deny it, when you fight it, it comes up like this evil form, this evil darkness in the shadow in the dark that you can barely make out, and it just haunts you. And it just gets worse and it gets worse. And the more you deny it, the more you shut down. Like the multiple times the mother refuses to let people speak her husband's name. Okay, she doesn't deal with the fact that her husband is gone, and she's still clinging on to those last remnants. And her grief and her denial of that grief almost manifests into this monstrosity that threatens to destroy everything. And that's what grief does. And the movie was so haunting for me because I saw myself in that role, feeling the things and going along the journey that she went along. Only, fortunately, I had support systems around me that enabled me to get up. This woman, I feel for it, fought through it to the end and comes to the eventual conclusion that you can't just get rid of it. It never goes away, but you can marshal it. You can lock it in the basement, occasionally feed it. In a healthy way.
which is a weird way to look at it, but yeah, in a healthy way.
Yeah, you recognize that it's there. You recognize that you have to deal with it, but you don't have to let it control you. And we see that once she's able to do that, when she's able to lock down the Babadook, when she's able to basically say, she's not afraid of it anymore. And then all of a sudden it shrinks away because it has no power over her. And then it loses its power. Now it's just something scary in the basement that we know is there. We occasionally have to deal with it, but it doesn't master us. And Director Kent's capturing of this in this personification, and we see again that theme that we've spoken about before of real life metaphorically with the metaphorical horror twist. And it was amazing because it was shocking to me. What was really shocking to me was that this film that I think everybody can connect to did not do very well in Australia. It did not. But it was a smash in both the US and the UK.
Yeah, it killed in the UK too.
Yep. Which I thought was so beyond weird. But it happens sometimes, it sometimes doesn't land where you're at, but it's kind of like, when I found out, I was kind of shocked when I found out that our podcast, that Week in Horror, is actually listening to, we have a pretty good Indian base that listens to us in India. And I was like, India? Really? But hey, man, that's fucking amazing. That's shocking because we are, we're also pretty big overseas. But sometimes that happens. But that was kind of shocking to me. But then all of a sudden, once the US and the UK, once it exploded over here, then all of a sudden Australia kind of goes, oh yeah, there's a really good movie. And then all of a sudden it kind of picked up in the land down under. But such an interesting tale. And I can see why it's in your top, Alex. Just fucking brilliance. The way it was crafted, the use of light and shadow to tell the story, just absolutely brilliant.
I think what really pulled me in a lot to that was exactly that, the light and shadow, the way that they would make a room feel. And that's, when it comes down to it, you can have these, because it wasn't like an unknown movie. People knew about it. It was out there. It was marketed. And it was almost like this mainstream movie that, I was like, what? I didn't even see it in theaters. I ended up seeing it well after it came out. I guess not like well after it came out because it's only 6 years ago. So I think I saw it probably. I guess it would have had to have been about 3 or 4 years ago. But
yeah, I think I saw it on VOD as well.
Yeah, I didn't see it in theaters, but it was the play. I think what really sucked me in because I'd seen it on whatever it was, Netflix or whatever, and I'd passed it a bunch of times. And I think it was just because I wasn't really in the mood to be, I don't know. I don't know. I guess I read it and I wasn't feeling it. And then one day I was like, whatever, sitting in my room bored. I was like, cool, watch it. And I got probably half an hour into it. And it was just the way that every shot was placed in a way to make you feel. They would put they would darken a room to gray when it was going to be sad. They would darken it. They would lighten up a room right before it got really dark. And just the way that they used the corners of the room, they'd make the shots, okay, you're looking at a door, but if I put the camera down in the bottom corner of the stairwell and I see the same door, but I can, at the same time, I can see something coming out of the left frame. And the way that, there's light in the window, but it's so gray in the room, it was just, you could feel every shot of that movie. Whenever, like I said, whenever it was going to be really sad, you could tell, you knew it was coming. And then when it peaked out, the way that they would make a totally ordinary living space just look absolutely depressing would pull you into one way, and then it'd scare the shit out of you. And it was like, fuck, this is a roller coaster.
Oh, there was one particular scene that always captured that just fucking got me, and so beautifully done. When Amelia is in the house, and
in the kitchen,
she's and then the room is all dark.
Yep.
Right, and you're looking at the scene. You're looking at it from her point of view, and the way it was just set up. You're seeing this dark room, and your mind is telling you there is something in this room. I can't tell where it is, and maybe it's that, maybe it's there, but you could tell. Because just the way the shapes were caught, the way certain outlines of certain objects were laid out in the room itself, you could tell there was something there. Is it in the corner? I can't really tell. Is it standing right in front of her? We're not sure, but there was another presence there, and that was that importance of the combination of the DP and the cinematography on that were just stunning.
I'm like,
it goes to show the importance of having people who understand not only how to create a scene both emotively and practically.
Yeah, because they play with sunlight really well in this movie.
They use the sun a lot.
The majority of the feel that you get from it is from sunlight. It's from a street lamp on the outside. I think lighting wise, one of the most impressive shots to me, and I know it's something, it may not stand out too much, but it's when Babadook's on a ceiling, and you have this light strip that goes through it. It's just so you can see him move, but they make it look like it's so natural looking. And it highlights him just enough so you see exactly what the audience needs to see without having we just need some kind of lamp, or we need some kind of, it's just artificial light, because movies sometimes light's just there for some reason to make it look pretty. It feels so natural. They play with it along in helping get that grief out, along having those muted colors, because it's kind of just a grayscale palette throughout the entire film. We don't get we don't get a lot of color.
No, it is.
You
but...
notice.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you notice at certain points in the movie that when they do use natural light, when she's outside, when she's in the car, when she was outside talking to her friends. That the presence of natural light, of sunlight, which we often see as a revealing or a warming sensation, where of your feelings of acceptance, and every time the natural light was present, she regressed. She got worse.
Yeah, it was dull and
she would draw away, or every time natural light began to show up in the scene, it was almost like the presence of this was almost like this, this is the light that you had, and it's just a constant reminder, and it always pushes her back into that grace, into that darkness. Like she recoils from the world around her because she's stuck in this one place.
God, and now thinking back on it, and after jail, you made a lot of sense when you were saying it plays off the grief, but it's almost like she bleeds those colors off of her. Like her aura is this gray, and when she's revealed to natural sunlight or anything that's brightly lit, she's always pushed into the darkness. That's a cool observation. Now I'm thinking about it. That's like, even when like the Babadook, when you see him, like you said, with the light going through him, every shot that they make, it plays off of that feeling of grief. And like when it gets real strong, you know, it's dark. And when it starts to kind of shift the other way, the scenes start to lighten up a little bit. But then when it regresses, it goes back to the back. Every time like she starts to regress, that's super cool. Now I'm thinking about it, like, oh crap, I gotta go watch it again.
Even when she's in the police station,
yeah,
and she sees the suit hanging out here like that, it's always there. Even in the safest of places,
it's so heavy.
Always in the back of it's in the back of your mind.
It's such a heavy movie.
It really is.
It's intense.
It does. It handles that emotion so well. And
I don't know if you could I don't know if you could like do this movie again. You could never remake the feeling. The director and everybody on set here, somebody in this crew had gone through some dark shit and thought real long and hard about it. It shows.
Yeah, because I don't know much about the director, Jennifer Kent, on it. Either she went through something or the writer of it.
It could have even been the lighting guy going through a bad time being like, hey, what if we try it this way? And she liked it. You never know.
You never know. Okay, the Jennifer Kent, she wrote the screenplay also. But somebody high up in that chain on the film definitely went through something, and it showcases it. That's what makes that film so good, because there are 1,000 movies out there that deal with grief. Grief is something, ever since the dawn of film, grief has been a theme on it. But this one, it captures it in a new, unique way that's still relatable.
I feel like if you're going through a hard time and you watch this movie, you'll be able to understand what you're feeling, no matter what it is. It brings out the feeling inside of you.
It does. You see it. We've talked about before, it's not the horror through metaphor. It's not the after-school special. It is these are things that you can go through. These are things that you can relate to go through without just throwing it in your face, like a Lifetime movie. So this is it's well done. And this is actually something that I like to ask the audience. Do you think that it should be just a good standalone film, or should it become a franchise? Because Babadook, he's creepy. He's definitely creepy.
I like the idea of keeping it alone. This was one of those singular experiences that, like, akin to butterfly wings, that once you touch them, they never get off the ground. And
that's fucking beautiful, Jail.
And then trying to mess with this or trying to add to it, or try to expand the universe or whatever, I think would ultimately damage the effect of the first film. It would diminish it in a way that I think would not be acceptable. The film itself should be, I think any horror fan should view it, because I think it will resonate with anybody. And I think it just by itself, just this one in the canon of horror films, let this one stand alone.
I mean, you know what? I'm sorry. We never even touched on like the book. You know, it was like a 10-page book, The Babadook. It was a story, and the whole thing plays off of that book. But this film was made off of like this short story. They took very little and turned it into the perfect. My opinion, I don't think they could do any better, and I don't think they should take it any farther. It's not like The Ring. It's not like the Spirit's gonna like move on. They had a point. We made our point. We battled the demons, and we've contained the demons, and that's it. I think it should just stay.
Yeah,
because I don't think anything farther.
S.E. Davis's character's relationship with the Babadook is just as important as the Babadook himself. It's not like, say, Freddy Krueger, where, okay, you have the villain, you have the group of teenagers, and then the teenagers, he kills a bunch of them, and then eventually it's a new set of teenagers that come back, and a new set. This felt like, their character's name, Amelia, this felt like Amelia's personal story.
Definitely.
And once she ends up being able to contain her grief, we see that character change, and then that's it. It's like the end of the story. There's no more beyond that.
This was her arc, her story, or her journey to get through this, to get from the darkness of her beginning situation, fighting through the trauma, and getting to this point. So
exactly. Should it be
solid
a standalone
story,
film?
solid scares? Call it.
Yeah, that's it. You done. Jennifer Kent, amazing film. I can't wait to see more come out from you. I'll definitely be looking forward to some upcoming work. But we have one more film, I believe.
Yes, we do. We do. This is the going into our last one.
Let's tear it up, boys.
Kind of a little bit of a bummer, considering the pedigrees that were behind this. Released May 22nd, 2015. We're looking at the reboot or remake of Poltergeist. So directed by Gil Keenan and written by David Lindsay Hebert. This was starred Sam Rockwell, Rosemary DeWitt, Jared Harris, and Jane Addams. And I also want to throw this in. I know we don't normally talk about it, but produced by the Evil Dead team themselves, Sam Raimi and Rob Tappert.
God damn it,
produced this one. Yeah, a lot of pedigree behind this reboot. Obviously, when you're rebooting or such a beloved film as the original Poltergeist was, then you definitely want the people behind it to have, Sam Rockwell's a fantastic actor, Rosemary DeWitt is a magnificent, Jared Harris, love him to death, but it kills me that while the film did make money, it did, budget of $35 million, it box office a little over 95 mil, but it should have made something like this should have made more. It really should have. It made money, and but it didn't make enough. So hopefully we will not get a sequel off of this. Hopefully this is just whatever. But, and I know they're bringing a new story to a new generation because hell, Poltergeist came out when I was a kid. But ultimately, I was left questioning: was this a necessary fucking movie? I know they're bringing they changed up a little bit. They brought the story to a new generation of theater goers. But was it necessary, or was this just a fucking cash grab? Playing on the nostalgia of people like me who grew up watching the shit that Carol Ann and the Freeling family dealt with. It's just I don't know. I honestly, I was left saying, what the fuck?
I know. And, it came out in May 2015. And, you had, Hot Pursuit and Mad Max and Tomorrowland. And fucking the Avengers Age of Ultron came out the same month that this movie did. And to say it was a cash grab, I don't think I would agree with it. I could be totally off. I mean, I feel like this was an actual attempt to redo this movie, but I think it came at a time where there were a lot of people dumping a shitload of money into these huge movies, and people were more, if I was gonna go see a movie in the theaters at that time, I'd pick Mad Max or the Avengers if I was gonna go spend the money on a movie theater experience. And so I think that had a lot to do with it, was the movies around it at the time. Now, not to say that this was the movie was good. My main issue with it was very slow moving. It took a long time to get into it, and when it did get into it, it wasn't what you expected. I was a huge fan of the original Poltergeist movie. I think that might have actually been my first horror film. Was the Poltergeist movie. I think that was the first scary movie that I ever saw. And so that lasted, I've watched it, 15 or 20 times at least since then. And just going into this one and being so excited, in the first, half of the movie was good. And then kind of getting into the second half, it was real, it was kind of a bummer. It was man, I know what happens in the first, at least bring back some of the weird scenes in that movie. And they did some stuff in The Clown and whatever, but I feel like it just came... It was a good movie. I feel like it came at the wrong time, though. I don't think it was a cash grab, only because of the huge movies that were coming out around it. It would have been silly to think that you would be able to steal money from, like, the Avengers or something. I feel like it was, like, a vision. It got put out there, and then it just kind of hit the wrong time. I feel like if it came out either a year later or a year earlier, maybe it would have been perceived better. But... you know, all around, not a terrible movie. I don't think that they necessarily had to remake this movie, but I feel like they probably could have done it at a different time. I don't see it as being a cash grab only because the amount of time that had passed between the first one, which I believe was 86. I could be totally off.
I mean, dropping it amidst the major films that were dropping around it, it felt very much like it was basically siphoning off those other movies, because some people would come late to the theater, and the theater would be sold out. They wouldn't be able to see the movie that they wanted, and then we could see the new Poltergeist. I remember Poltergeist. I grew up with that. Maybe they did pretty good, and that's what they were kind of doing.
I feel like if you're banking off of that, you're not confident enough in your movie.
Exactly. They were drafting off of it. I felt like they were drafting off the nostalgia as well as the bigger films that were around it. Not to mention, when you throw the clown on the movie poster.
Yeah.
That was a scary scene in the original film, and people will remember that. Oh, I remember the clown being scary. That clown looks scary, and then it
doesn't do anything.
Exactly, they were drafting off of our nostalgia.
And then I guess that was probably one of the most disappointing parts. Just sat there.
Yeah, it did nothing.
Nothing ever happened with the clown.
Well, let me ask this question. Interesting, because I just thought of this point. Let's say the original Poltergeist never existed. Like, this is just the first one, and it's not a remake, reboot, or whatever it is. It's an own independent film, and somebody put this together and released it. Would you consider it a good film?
Actually, no. I wouldn't.
And I agree.
It's because you agree.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about earlier, in terms of adding nothing to the genre. I've seen this and I forgot it came out until we're talking about, getting ready for the podcast. I did. I forgot about it. We were talking about what...
and that original was in 82.
Oh, in 82.
Okay, yeah, 82, not 86.
I totally forgot about this movie existed, and I've seen it.
I guess it was. I guess now that you say that, it was only tolerable because I was so into the first one, or the original, if you will. So I think, maybe if this was a standalone, if this came out, if that was the first one, I don't think it would be a great film.
I think what it lacked, and I know you asked me if this film would be solid if the original franchise did not exist, but it's because what got us into the original franchise was Heather O'Rourke. Okay, was the power of that little girl's performance.
They're here.
Exactly. Heather O'Rourke was going to be an amazing actress. Tragically, she passed away at a very, very young age. But
by her parents' hand, right?
No, she had an undiagnosed
like a stomach thing, right?
Stomach issue, like intestinal issue, and it was diagnosed as something else, and she was misdiagnosed, and it ended up, she ended up passing from it. It was very, very sad. I remember hearing about it in the news, but there was the quality of that little girl, the quality of that actress, of her talent, her sheer absolute talent. And this film lacked that. That's that Carol Ann is what hooked me into the first. It was what hooked all audiences into the first film. It was Carol Ann and the family around her fighting for Carol Ann. She was the basically the center of the story that everything was built around, and so we've got to love this little girl like she was our own, and feel like parents watching her, or as kids watching this. You know, we understand, we empathize with the little girl who's terrified of the monster in the closet, but. The remake, it did not have that. It did not have that. No character in this had I couldn't connect with any of them. You know, Rosemary DeWitt did not hit me like Jo Beth Williams, and Sam Rockwell did not hit me like Craig T. Nelson. Craig T. Nelson, the strapping, all-American dad, helpless in the face of this supernatural evil that wants his daughter. The little girl, so sweet, so innocent, so precocious, and just absolutely amazing, and then is the victim of this terrible monstrosity. And the mother, at her wit's end, fighting for everything she can to save her daughter. I got none of that from this film.
Yeah, because what makes the original so good is that it's the family. It's not the scares. It's not the ghosts. It's the family. And they're the ones. They draw you in.
Spielberg.
And so
hey, what was your most memorable scene from this movie? Okay, what was your most memorable scene from the first one?
Oh shit.
Oh,
like three.
See how you can come up with a bunch
right popped into my head. The tree eating the brother, the clown strangling the brother, and the shit coming out of the closet when like the tentacle.
Oh yeah, we have the jaw. Yeah, it was like the doorway to the realm.
That shit fucked me up as a little kid.
The one that stuck out for me the most as a kid was the face peeling scene.
Oh, in the bathroom.
Yeah, with the maggots, he's peeling his face off. I will never, ever, ever forget that.
See, the scene that comes the most from the original is when the mother hears the screams and she starts running up, starts running down that hallway, and they do that vertigo shot. So she's running down the hallway and it starts extending.
Whoa!
and I'm sorry, the presence of Zelda Rubinstein.
Oh
in
yeah,
the first, in the first ones. I mean, come on, this house is clean. With that fucking smugness that only she could. I mean, come on. There was it wasn't that these are not talented actors, but for some reason there was just not an emotional connection between the actors themselves as a family, and
that's a good way to put it.
The events that were going on, there was a lack of connectivity, the connective tissue that made this a family.
That was great in the Babadook.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
You get that. You get that connective tissue.
Yeah, that's what it is.
That was the thing that got. And I mean, we say it was directed by Tobe Hooper. We know, but we know that Steven Spielberg had a hand in making this, and Spielberg does families like no one else.
It's actually really funny you bring that up, because according to the Directors Guild at the time, a director can only release one movie a year. And so Steven Spielberg did E.T. that year, but both E.T. and Poltergeist are passion projects for him. So he called up Tobe Hooper to direct it, and Tobe Hooper went into Poltergeist knowing that he's basically going to be relaying Steven Spielberg. Because Steven Spielberg, though he didn't get the directed by credit, he pretty much directed. Like Tobe Hooper was on the phone with him pretty much every day on set.
Right, because Spielberg couldn't be on set himself.
Yeah, because Spielberg couldn't be on set himself, and it was just one of those formatting dings with the guild and the union and all this other kind of stuff was the reason why Spielberg couldn't direct it himself. And Tobe Hooper, he direct Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and all of a sudden Steven Spielberg calls you up and you're like, hey, I'm gonna kind of ghost direct this, but you want to be on set and get credit? Okay.
Fuck yeah, you don't.
Yeah.
But I don't know why. Maybe it's the director. Maybe it was the fact that the guys behind the power behind this film were the guys who made Evil Dead. Okay, the guys who pal around with Bruce Campbell. Okay, there was. I mean, they didn't direct it, but they produced it. You can always see whatever Sam Raimi touches. You can see hallmarks of Sam Raimi in whatever he touches. And a film like this, you've got to, the emotional investment is supposed to be in the family. And no one does families like Steven Spielberg. I mean, you look at E.T. I mean, even Jaws, okay? he created a family out of Roy Scheider and Richard Dreyfuss and Quint. Those guys became a family on that boat. Okay? Spielberg recognizes the connective tissue that brings people together to make them seem like an organic unit. And I did not get that from this family here. I saw a disconnected family that was dealing with shit. And even though they were brought together by this extraordinary experience, by the end, I go to, wow, this family, they got through this shit, they got through it together, everybody's hugs and everybody's happy. In 6 weeks, they're going to be dealing with the same bullshit that was disconnecting them in the first place because they didn't deal with that. It totally took me out of it. And so, no, I wouldn't expect it to go any further than that. It was just one of the areas where I think it failed miserably is I didn't really care about the family.
I didn't either. I know a lot of times, especially people nowadays, we want to see dysfunctional families and families bickering amongst each other, and to add some sort of depth and grittiness and all sorts of kind of stuff. There's a lot in it today. There's nothing wrong with a happy, cohesive family in a film. There is nothing wrong with that. It is okay for people to love each other and just have a genuinely good relationship, a good, authentic relationship, and care about each other. And then put them in the extraordinary circumstances of all the ghosts and how they battle that. But it is okay for a family to be happy.
It's so much cooler to see a family that works together in a situation like that than it is to see like the typical teenage daughter on her phone, doesn't give a shit, teenage boy who hates, and it's all a struggle. It's so much cooler to see a family that works together in that situation. And I think
that scene when the big sister's being catcalled by the guys working in the backyard of the house.
Mm-hmm.
She's leaving. She's getting catcalled, and the mom's watching it from the kitchen window. And Joe Beth Williams' character is watching it from the kitchen window, and the daughter does that whole where she flips him off. She's like the deal. Anyway, and then the mom is just like, "Yeah, that's my daughter.
That's my kid."
That I was like right there. That is the kind of stuff that you've got to have. And yes, it is okay to have a happy family. And it is okay to see a happy family thrown into extraordinary circumstances and then draw strength from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay? What the support between the husband and the wife, between the parents at the end, when it's who's going to go into the other side to get our daughter. Who's
the whole
going,
fucking tennis ball scene. Just keeps...
Exactly, yeah. It was like, and making the decision as to who's going to go. And I felt that. I was there, and it just wasn't there, unfortunately, in this one. And, I think that ultimately that's what killed it. So the one thing, going into this whole, cash grab idea, which I firmly think this movie was, I want to ask the audience, what is your opinion of cash grab reboots? Like, what do you guys think of them? I want to know. I want to know what you guys think of films that are put out just to draft off nostalgia, just to, maybe draft off some bigger films to get that money. What do you think of them? Do you like them? Do they speak to your nostalgia, or do you just dislike them as much as I do because you see them for what they are? Let us know. I'd like to know. Yeah, hit us up at weekinhorror@gmail.com. We would love to hear your interactions as to what you think on any of the films we've talked about tonight. Just really, I want to know about that. All right, and it looks like we've got two special names that we're talking about. Unfortunately, one in memoriam and one birthday. Alex, who we paying our respects to?
Our in memoriam today would be Bill Paxton, born May 17th, 1955, died February 25th, 2017, so not that long ago. Unbelievable actor. First of all, some of the biggest movies that you've probably heard him, or probably seen him in are Apollo 13, Twister. He was in Edge of Tomorrow, which it looks like he liked to work with Tom Cruise. His career ended with... he was in The Terminator, Aliens, Predator 2, Tombstones, True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
He's the only actor to have the honor of being killed in a film by the big Sci-Fi 3.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Terminator,
Alien, Terminator, Predator. Yep.
That's true.
Look at that. He got killed by everybody.
Smoked by an alien in Aliens, smoked by Predator and Predator 2, and was one of the punks at the beginning of Terminator who got smoked by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Just annihilated. I wanted to touch a little bit on his last movie. It was The Circle with Emma Watson and Tom Cruise. That movie was about essentially social media. It's like a futuristic movie about like social media, and they had all these cameras and stuff that they'd watch people and whatever. Go watch The Circle if you haven't seen it, because it is a pretty good movie. But The Circle, which he was in 2017, has now actually become a Netflix reality TV show, which was a fucking disappointment.
Oh,
because
it's so bad.
I fucking hate reality TV shows. This is something that I will put out there. I fucking hate reality TV shows. You were just the fucking bane of my existence. Just go fucking die. If you need that much attention from the fucking world, you got other fucking issues you need to work out. Go figure that shit out. Stop flaunting your tits on TV and fucking people for money. Just don't. I fucking hate it. Sorry. Had to throw it out there. That was a disappointment. The movie was actually pretty good.
The one thing that always got me, despite the fact that he was so many good things. There's two things that stand out about Bill Paxton for me from his career.
Tombstone.
Was
that one of them?
I've loved all the work that he worked so many times with James Cameron, and his work on Titanic and the stuff he did with him behind the scenes. But there were two things. First was his movie Frailty.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Mighty Joe Young.
Funny. He was so fucking good in that. As the dad receiving visions and the supernatural aspect of that with Matthew McConaughey and Powers Booth. And I got to see that one in theaters. I actually saw that one with my dad. That one was 11 when jarring film. That one surprised me. That one stayed with me for a few days. But and he was so fucking good. But then the one that really struck me was one of the earliest things he did was he was in a music video for, I can't remember the band's name. Maybe one of you guys can look up the name, but it was for the Fishhead song.
The Fishhead song.
Fish heads, roly-poly fish heads. Fish heads.
Were you born in the 80s or something?
Yes, holy shit. He was in this fucking music video. It blows my mind. And if you go back, it aired on MTV in the early, because MTV started in 1981.
Was it called Reach? Oh no, Fish Heads by Limp Bizkit.
Yeah. No. Way early. No, this is like early 80s, like 82, 83 or something like that. And you have to look up the song Fish Heads, roly-poly fish heads.
I'm sorry, Fish Heads was redone by Limp Bizkit and Imaginary Nazis. No.
Was it?
Eat You Alive by... He did a bunch of Limp Bizkit music videos. Eat You Alive by Limp Bizkit. Barnes and Barnes.
Fish Heads was by Fish Heads was by Barnes and Barnes.
Barnes and Barnes.
Okay. And
the music video literally has a fish head with lipstick on it and like a fucking fake eyelashes.
Yes, that's it. And it was released in 1980.
He also did some music videos with Pat Benatar, Shadows of the Night.
Yeah, he might have been a huge music video fan.
Okay, the single was released in '78, and it featured in what was it, in Barnes and Barnes' 1980 album, and it was played numerous times on the Dr. Demento's show because it's so fucking goofy.
Because
it's a song. It's a song about fucking fish heads, but the music video starred Bill Paxton. And he directed. He actually directed and appeared in this thing. So it's like one of the earliest examples of his directing and his acting. So it was absolutely so fucking funny. But just amazing to see him in this because he's not featured prominently. But there's a moment when he goes to, when his character goes to this birthday party, and everyone at the birthday party is all fish heads. But he's the only person, and he's like acting like he's actually at it. It's so fucking weird, but I mean, obviously it's it's crazy out there. But yes, Buck 65, Eagle Eye Cherry, and Wildman Fisher they did covers of fish heads.
Yeah, it looks like a few people did. He was in. It looks like he was in a few Limp Bizkit music videos. I didn't believe it, so I was looking it up. But yeah, he definitely was.
Maybe Fred Durst was a fan of his.
Maybe he was a fan of Fred Durst.
Oh, don't say that. Oh,
I doubt that. Don't speak ill of the dead like that.
Wow.
I mean,
man, we click on a lot of stuff, but I feel like we just hit a. I was a huge fan
going
of
back, I mean, what was it? Weird Science.
Yeah, Weird
Science. He was amazing, amazing in that one as the brother, but such obviously a dynamic actor. His best TV role, in my opinion, was for HBO with Big Love.
Okay.
And I thought he was incredible in that one. Yeah, his chemistry, it was so weird. I mean, it was so impressive, and it was weird to see this one guy. He's this one character. He's playing this polygamist living in Utah with his 3 wives, and he's a businessman, and he owns like the largest. It's kind of like a Home Depot ripoff, but it's the biggest one in the area. So he makes money. So he's got money, and he's married. He's a Mormon, and he's practicing the old ways. So he's actually a polygamist, and he has 3 wives, played by Jean Triplehorn, Chloe Sevigny, and Jennifer Goodwin. And he's bought each one of them a house. Okay? So in the primary house is him and Jean Triplehorn, and they have their 3 kids. And then in the second house, you have him and Chloe Sevigny, and their twins. And then the third house, you have Jennifer Goodwin living in that one, and their newborn baby, and their backyards are all interconnected. They've removed the inside fences and created one giant backyard. And to see him move in between the different wives, and you get a different kind of a different character, or a different, I guess, face when he's interacting with each wife individually, and then the face when he goes out into the public and he's kind of hiding his polygamy, seeing him be able to move seamlessly through all of that. And then see him in his quiet moments when the pressure of everything is kind of weighing down on him and kind of crushing him. Just a testament to his effortless ability to play pretty much anything.
Did you know, random tidbit of information, he was in the crowd. He was born in Fort Worth, Texas.
Texas native.
I live in Fort Worth. He was born in Fort Worth. He was in the crowd when John F. Kennedy came out of the Hotel Texas in Fort Worth the morning of his assassination.
Wow, I did not know that.
If you go to the 6th floor museum at Dealey Plaza, his photo is his photographs of him when he was 8 years old are on display at the 6th floor museum in Dealey Plaza in Dallas right now. And then he later co-produced a film called Parkland about the assassination. But yeah, he was there the day. He was one of the last people to see John F. Kennedy alive. That's nuts. That dude's
such a storied life. I heard so many good things about him behind on set, that he was just a generous actor, and so willing to work just to help anybody improve their performances, and to get always giving such excellent back and forth, and helping people make good decisions, make good choices, and good tactics on film. But I also heard that what he was really known for was he was truly a believer in the magic of storytelling. And people always talked about how no matter what was going on in his life, no matter what difficulties were happening or the things that were going on in the world at the time, he always relied upon that kind of ethereal nature of storytelling, that magical quality to telling any kind of story whatsoever. Doesn't matter what it was, whether it was, aliens, or whether it was Frailty, or whether it was in Big Love, or even any of his smaller roles. He was like a kid when it came to that, and it inspired everybody around him. So such an amazing talent, and such a shame to lose him in such a tragic way. Something so innocuous could take him from us, but man, he had a fantastic career.
He really did.
He did. And, that fever that he got when he was a kid, he got rheumatic fever when he was a kid, and that was what damaged his heart. And, he ended up dying of a stroke. And it all stemmed back to that. And it was just, you could tell that he understood, mortality and life and what it was, because he was friends with James Cameron, and he went with James Cameron after they filmed Titanic and went on the expedition to the actual Titanic, and they did a film about that. It wasn't like this was his life. He lived to tell the story, and he did a fantastic job at it.
He took charge of it.
He really did.
He did. So you know what? Rest in peace.
We miss you, Bill.
Rest in peace, Bill. And
all right, Eugene, we got a birthday.
Oh yes, so that way we can end things on a happy note.
With somebody who we recently talked about.
Yes, we did, and definitely a high school crush of mine. Woohoo!
Those goth girls, huh?
No, I'm right. I am right there with you too.
She was born May 21st, 1974, and that is Fairuza Balk. And obviously, probably the biggest one right off the bat is The Craft, but she was in also Almost Famous, American History X.
Oh God, she was so fucking good.
She was good in it. She was really, really good. We're trying to convince her, hey, just leave the group. Just leave. Yeah. That's it. Just walk away. Just walk away. And then she ends up turning on them.
Drink.
And and then obviously one of her funniest parts, Waterboy.
Do you want me to kill him?
No.
I love that. Just that one scene when she's at dinner with Kathy Bates and Adam Sandler. Well, I happen to find Deputy Dog very sexy. I'm like, what the God, she was so brilliant in that.
She really was. Her
name? You know where her name comes from?
Where does it come from?
Super cute story. Her dad, when he saw her blue eyes, exclaimed Fairuza, which means turquoise in Farsi, which is a language that I don't understand at all. But Fairuza, it means turquoise, and her dad was talking about her eyes.
That's badass because it's such an unusual name.
Yeah, well, her dad's name was Solomon Feldhaus.
But it was something that was always kind of a cool aspect about her because, she was so unique and she had this persona in a lot of her work that other people couldn't match.
There was I definitely see it, especially in you see it in Return to Oz. Mm-hmm. And there was I would say a presence or an energy about her performance. What's the best way to put it? There was a wisdom beyond her years.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
In that, I guess some more spiritual people would say an old soul. In that respect, I always got that I was no matter what she was playing, whether it was in The Craft or it was even in The Waterboy, which is a slapstick, silly, goofy movie. But I think that exudes from Fairuza herself and just emanates in her work is just a very worldly individual who sees a little bit further, a little bit deeper than most of us do, and I think would probably contribute to the fact that she was one of my big crushes of the '90s.
She lived such a weird life too. Like she grew up in California, like on a communion type ranch. And when you were talking about Return to Oz, and then The Craft 10 years later, but they lived in like London. She lived in London with her mom. Her parents split shortly after she was born, but just the life that she led and the places that she went, London and Paris, and just got to experience the world young. And you can tell in her films that, you know, she had been through so much that she can portray these roles, like you said, far beyond her years. It's super cool. She led a super cool life so far. You know, she's got plenty left in her. So
yeah, definitely.
Super interesting person. From her name to the places she's been.
It's a testimony of her work when compared to a lot of other actors. She hasn't put out as much work as some other actors who have been out there during the same time span, but her work is work that sticks. It's work that stays with you.
Yeah,
yeah.
It is.
I think there was her most recent work was in 2018. She did a film called, it was a home invasion film called Hell Is Where the Home Is.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And you think it was just a throw off, but yeah, you could definitely. I mean, she still has that, and it really came through, and even in these smaller roles that were not huge. I mean, in that one, her character was nameless. She was just the visitor in that one. So I mean, stuff like in Bad Lieutenant. She was in the Bad Lieutenant sequel, Port of Call in New Orleans. I think it was more of a remake, but she was in there with Nicolas Cage and Val Kilmer and Brad Dourif. So many bigger names, so many big names in that one. But no matter what, she always brings that. Oh, I guess Hollywood would call it.
Yeah, the X Factor.
Yeah, the X Factor. I like that. Yeah.
And she also, like a lot of our favorite people in horror, she was in the Masters of Horrors TV series too.
Of course.
She was.
The episode Pick Me Up.
Did you also know that she was a vampire in a ZZ Top music video?
I didn't know that, but I can totally see it.
Since we were talking about music videos. Yeah,
now, she's also done some voice work.
Yeah?
Because she was in Grand Theft Auto Vice City.
Oh man, that was a good game.
She was Mercedes Cortez in GTA Vice City, and though I am a World of Warcraft player, she voiced Lady Talak in Lords of EverQuest.
Lords of EverQuest.
Yeah. Oh, and if you guys don't get a chance, have you ever seen Ray Donovan, the show Ray Donovan?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, she had 7 episodes in Ray Donovan. She was amazing. Playing Ginger in that, so I'm so glad that she is still cranking it out.
Hell yeah!
Knock
him out!
I can't wait to see more. Well, you know what? Happy birthday, Feruza!
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
All right, well, that brings another episode of Week in Horror to a close. I want to thank all of you listeners so much for checking us out and staying with us. This has been absolutely an amazing experience. You guys make this show an incredible experience to make, and we really, truly appreciate it. As always, your feedback, comments, and questions are always welcome. Hit us up at weekinhorror@gmail.com. And if you really, really, really dig the show, you can support us at Patreon. Patreon.com/weekinhorror, and you can get early access to our Bloodbath debates and our After Dark sessions with our special guests once a month. Definitely check out our social media, facebook.com/weekinhorror or Twitter @weekinhorror. You can get our daily splatter, a little bit of horror information or horror trivia every single day straight to your feed. We really do appreciate it. Thank you so much again.
I'm Alex.
I'm Eugene.
And I'm JL.
We'll see you next week, and as always, stay scared.